Hello and welcome to the Water Pavilion, where we are generating conversations on policy and action at every level. This has been a colossal effort of upwards of 30 partners who have come together to speak with one voice on how water action can help provide solutions to climate challenges. Through the programming, there are nearly 100 events that are providing a space for global and local water and climate voices that want to influence positive change for water and climate. And that is where our Water ChangeMakers event comes in. Water ChangeMakers Forge Frontiers for Resilience. Launched in May of 2020, the Water ChangeMakers sought to find and make visible teams and organizations who've shaped decisions about water that have helped to build climate resilience. Let's hear from a few of those water changemakers.
Inspired by a partnership with the UNFCCC Resilience Frontiers Initiative, the Global Water Partnership launched the 2020 Water ChangeMaker Awards in collaboration with over 30 organizations in the middle of a global health and economic crisis. And whilst this crisis persists in requiring unprecedented efforts of governments, businesses and citizens around the world, essential approaches to tackling climate change must continue. The awards celebrate those making smart decisions on how we use and safeguard our water resources and how we protect ourselves against climate-driven crises. These changemakers innovate new ways of working and collaborating, change mindsets from inertia to action, speak truth to power, redefine laws and policies, and inspire others to make change happen and secure our future. The Water ChangeMaker Awards champion these journeys and celebrate those who deliver results in the fight against climate change. The Water ChangeMaker Awards opened for submissions on the 6th of April 2020, and winners were announced at the Climate Adaptation Summit in January 2021. The Changemakers now continue on their journeys at COP26 in Glasgow. Over 350 individuals, teams and organizations from over 80 countries submitted their experience of having influenced local water decisions to help build global climate resilience. Over 7 weeks, 78 submissions were shortlisted by a technical jury, evaluated for their contribution to climate resilience, the magnitude and longevity of change made, the depth of learning and the breadth of collaboration. A second jury, led by Oyun Sanjasuren, then selected the 12 finalists. And with 4 winners selected by a final jury, alongside People's Choice and People's Choice Africa winners, all were announced by GWP Chair Howard Bamsey at the Climate Adaptation Summit 2021. Celebrating those that shape local water decisions around the world shows us what is needed to become a real change maker. Infectious enthusiasm, motivation to work for a cause bigger than oneself, political buy-in, adequate financial and human resources, good communication, strong, transparent coalitions and partnerships that translate inertia into action, potential for growth and scalability. The Water ChangeMaker Awards have brought together a global community of dynamic teams and organizations to learn from one another and inspire others to innovate and envision a sustainable future. This is a call for solidarity, hope, collaboration. Shine a light on bright ideas. Discover the Water ChangeMaker stories.
And welcome all to the COP26, to the Water Pavilion, and to our event on Water ChangeMakers. It's been a long journey since the Water ChangeMakers were conceived at COP25 until this moment where we're finally bringing the voices from the ground into the global policy arena and making space for water within climate change discussions. In today's event, we're going to hear more about the Water ChangeMakers, but we're also going to hear about what it takes to be a change maker in your own community, in particularly around leadership qualities and how to drive positive change on the ground. In preparation for this event, we also collected messages from our Water ChangeMakers that they wanted to convey to decision makers at COP26. So we'll be very much looking forward to relaying those messages here today. It gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce Daria Soto-Abril, who is our Executive Secretary and CEO of the Global Water Partnership, to say a few words of welcome. Daria.
Thank you very much, Danny. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and with all of you who are joining the ChangeMaker event this morning. And for me, it's an inspiration, the fact that we are here together, because these projects really represent what we're trying to do in the Global Water Partnership, but also in COP. They represent a bottom-up approach where we bring in really the experiences, the expertise, the knowledge, the courage from within the different countries, communities, localities into what we're doing in COP. It's putting a real concrete face into our work. So that bottom-up approach is really what we're hearing more and more from the countries in the global north, from the donors, from the businesses that they want to see in projects that deal with climate change and adaptation and mitigation. The other one is the connection. And one of the things that we aspire to do in the Global Water Partnership, Danny, is that we take these experiences, we just don't just showcase them, but we also connect them with other change makers in other countries of the world, and also with donors, with entities like ours who are really trying to do something in water, climate change, climate adaptation and mitigation. And the third one is the innovation / inspiration that these stories that we're going to hear today in a bit will bring to all of us, because it will show that beyond all these numbers, when we hear about 100 billion a year and 1.5 degrees, they're really stories from the ground. This is really people whose life is being changed for the good and for the not so good by climate change, but also by what we have in the conversations today. So it's a pleasure to be here today among these inspirative and innovative change makers. And I hope this event really showcases what we're doing and what else can we do. And hopefully when we meet again in a year from now in the next COP in Egypt, that we can show that beyond the stories, we have been able to make connections that are really changing a position in these activities and programs that they are going to present to us today. So thank you so much, Danny, and back to you.
Thanks so much for those words. It's true, a lot is happening on the ground, and that's what we want to showcase today. It's not that people are waiting around for change to happen or to come down to them from the top, but they are the ones that are on the front lines of climate change impacts, and they're the ones that have to adapt. And so we want to take this opportunity to celebrate those initiatives and connect them to others to share their knowledge and experience. Right now, we're going to listen to a conversation between the UNFCCC Resilience Frontiers Initiative and GWP about fostering leadership to make positive change on the ground happen. The idea for the Water ChangeMakers actually grew out of a collaboration at COP25 and has developed and thrived ever since from that one seed that was planted. So we're going to now turn to a bit of a interview that we had a few days ago here at COP26. So after that brief video introduction to the Water ChangeMakers, we're going to delve into a conversation now about how the Water ChangeMaker Awards emerged from collaboration at COP25 and how vision and leadership of the Water ChangeMakers community can be further fostered. I am very pleased to be able to welcome Dr. Youssef Nassef, Director of the Adaptation Division of the UNFCCC and leading the Resilience Frontiers Initiative, and Mr. Daria Soto-Abril, CEO and Executive Secretary of the Global Water Partnership. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you, Dan.
So if I can start with Dr. Nassef, at the last COP and since then, we've heard about shifting mindsets and shaping the future. Could you give us a little background about the resilience frontiers and the goals that were set and the progress that you've been able to make so far?
Well, thank you very much, Danny. The Resilience Frontiers Initiative is the UN's most comprehensive effort at using foresight to visualize a state of permanent resilience in the future and of trying to see what are those first mover activities that can get the ball running in order to reach that permanent future. And GWP has been a partner with us since the beginning in trying to look at water and how all aspects relating to water, equitable use, quality, quantity, transboundary aspects, how as we move into the future, we can make sure that all the world can actually use water equitably and that we reach a sustainable state where water in particular, but associated other areas like food, health, etc., are also sustainably used and available to people. So that's basically the Resilience Frontiers initiative. Here at the Resilience Lab in COP26, we have devoted 1 day for each of 8 pathways to achieve the state of resilience, and water occupies one of those days.
Great. So it's very exciting to think about what water resources management is going to look like decades from now. So with GWP as a very forward-looking organization, and we're working in our strategy on water security for the future. And then at the same time, we're part of these processes that have different levels of scope, right? Regional, country, and global. So that provides a lot of insights to working at these different levels. And so what, in your opinion, are the main elements or the drivers that can bring about a whole systems change? And what's the role of leadership in that?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Diane. As you know, here at the Global Water Partnership, we're celebrating 25 years of creation, and one of the main learnings and drivers have been the regions. So the bottom-up approach, we have 13 regions, more than 16 countries, and the learnings that come from within the regions, how do we bring that up to the global processes? That's one element. The other element is the knowledge sharing. How do we connect the regions between themselves, with the countries, with organizations like the UN, with the global processes? That sharing of knowledge is the other ingredient. And the third one is about innovation. How do we bring new ideas through that process? How we connect the bottom-up with the top-down approach of the global processes and dialogues that are happening right now.
Okay, thanks. Well, now I have a question for both of you. The world is moving at a very fast pace, and we often find ourselves in a whirlpool of technology and growing demands and global crisis impacts. So what, in your opinion, are the leaders of tomorrow? What qualities should they possess and in order to stay focused and be able to navigate through all of these obstacles? And also, how do you think those qualities have changed over the past decades?
Well, 2 things come to mind. First, the skill of influence without authority, where leaders can use it to instill a sense of integrity in people that goes beyond maximizing the immediate self-interest of their own vicinity, of the organization they work in or the company, but to always have in mind the impact on the world at large. So a globalistic approach to interests, and that comes through a sense of integrity that expands the scope of people's thinking, and that comes from that type of leadership where you can influence people to do it even though it's not really in their job description. The second thing is awareness of the implications of frontier technologies. Because as we advance with satellite technology, with AI, with big data, with Internet of Things, satellites, we said, biotechnology, there will be a lot of new opportunities that can be used in the interest of achieving the goals of an organization like GWP or UNFCCC for water security, for sustainability, etc. And this awareness and our capacity to find new ways of using these technologies will be instrumental in achieving our goals. If not, they can go the other way because it's a tool. It can be used for good or for bad. So I think these are very important qualities as we move into the future. And perhaps in the past we did have the notion of influence without authority. but not in the sense of applying it to a new type of integrity. So I think this is the evolution we're moving towards now.
Very exciting. Would you like to add anything to
Yeah, I would have to add that if we're thinking about the leaders of the future, one quality is being adaptive. So being able to evolve with the times, to pause and see what's happening and be innovative, as was mentioned before. The other one is being empathic or caring. The leaders now, they're expected to be able to relate to the problems that they're facing, that the world is facing. So you have to have that drive of understanding and caring. The third one would be resilient. The world is tough right now. We've seen it here in the COP how we're with a sense of urgency to act. So that resilience to be able to overcome obstacles, to keep going, persevering, even in spite of adversity, that's a very strong quality expected from leaders right now. And I think the last one has to be a learning leader. It's not enough to say that this is what we're going to do, but that leader needs to be able to reflect, to learn about what's the good and also the failures that he or she might have, and then act based on those learnings.
Okay, great answers. The last question I'd ask is, what can each of our institutions do to make sure that those emerging leaders and change makers have our support to go as far as possible?
Well, I'll build a bit on what Dario said. I think as institutions that care for the world and care for a sustainable future, we must not only tolerate experimentation or mistakes. We have to encourage them, especially if they're in the service of empathy or in the service of attaining sustainability, or even if the greater good does not necessarily coincide with the individual interests of an organization. So allowing this type of experimentation, this type of innovation, and especially innovation in thought, and encouraging it and nurturing it and providing resources for it. And this is something that was not happening in the past. There was a lot of scrutiny about anything that goes outside the boundary that is set by organizations like our own. And I think this is something that needs to be nurtured further.
I would say, totally in line with that, creating spaces where we could foster this innovation, safe spaces with the innovators of the future, the youth, the leaders could come and bring new ideas and try to learn more about what they're doing. So that's one, creating the spaces. The other one is having these connections. I talked about the knowledge, sharing knowledge, and connecting leaders from across different geographies so that they can also experiment with each other, to exchange best practices, to see how their ideas adapt or complement. And the third one, I think, for us is to make also linkages between those leaders with organizations like ours, and investors and donors and governments, because there's many new ideas that are coming from within the communities, from within the towns, etc. And what they need is this connection, this leap of faith, someone who believes and invests in them. So beyond the technical assistance and beyond creating spaces, what is that connection with investors? And I think that's something that we definitely could do more from UNFCCC, but also from UWP.
Absolutely.
And if I could just add to that, I think it's also really important that we encourage women leaders to emerge and to rise to the top.
Yes.
So thank you both for your really interesting insights. This was a great conversation. And now we're going to meet the Water ChangeMakers Awards winners. And we are back at the Water Pavilion. Originally, we thought that we would be presenting the Water ChangeMakers here in person 1 year ago. But obviously, for reasons beyond our control, we had to demonstrate our own form of climate resilience. And so we instead announced the winners at the Climate Adaptation Summit last January. And we also conducted a People's Choice vote to make sure that people had the opportunity to express their own opinion on what the best practices were that could be shared. Finally, today, we're extremely happy to be able to present you the winners here today, albeit virtually rather in person. And it's my honor to present these Water ChangeMaker Awards winners. It's a very special moment for GWP, and also for our 30 plus partners that helped us along this journey. So we in preparation for this event, we reached out to the Water ChangeMakers Award winners, and we asked them 2 questions, and we're going to be sharing the answers to those questions with you. And we hope that not just the audience that's watching here today, but also those who are making decisions will hear them and take note, because these are the voices of those who drive and make change happen on the ground. So the 2 questions that we asked our winners were, first of all, what does it take to increase climate resilience in a community based on their own experiences? And the second question was, what is one thing that you would ask climate leaders at COP26 to do? So without further ado, I'm going to present you the Water ChangeMaker Awards winner, which we actually heard from in the last session. It's the Masungi Georeserve story, Restoring Forgotten Watersheds Through Youth-Led Movements. This organization is represented by Billy Dumaliang, an advocacy officer and trustee from the Masungi Georeserve Foundation in the Philippines. We've interacted with Billy several times since the award ceremony, and every single time we speak to her, she manages to impress us with her strong drive and her passion for the work that she's doing in the Philippines. So we're going to now see the video of Billy.
Reserve in the Philippines. As a member of the Masungi Reserve team, I am proud of the work that our team was able to accomplish in just a span of 20 short years. With just over 100 people working for conservation, we were able to restore around 400 hectares of denuded lands, bringing back the habitat for over 400 documented species of flora and fauna, restoring the area's natural carbon sink, and protecting the waterways that provide clean water for the surrounding communities.
Hello, my name is Billy. I am from the Masungi Reserve Foundation in the Philippines, and we take care of more than 2,000 hectares of critical watershed and a karst ecosystem that's defending Manila from the effects of climate change. And in our experience, what it really takes to increase climate resiliency in our community is to have courage to go against the grain and to resist the inertia that has plagued our forests for a long time. In our experience, these things that are destroying the forests are actually brought about by a broken system, damaged institutions, and syndicated organized activities and crime. And it is against those activities and entities that we need to stand up, and we need to stop them from continuing the practice of destroying our forests in the name of so-called progress. So we need courage, and we need to take the first steps to talk to our decision makers and leaders so that we can together stop all of these destructive activities that are hindering our services from nature, from defending us from floods and landslides, the loss of water, and the loss of lives and livelihood. The one thing I would ask the leaders at COP26 to do is to not forget those at the front lines in their words and actions. They don't know what difference they can make when they bring the rangers, when they bring indigenous communities, when they bring women and young people at the forefront of these discussions. And don't forget what kind of support this conference, the long-term plans and the short-term plans can do to them who are actually on the ground, who are risking their lives every day. We need your help. We need your support. We need the attention of the international community to be able to continue the hard work that we are doing for the world and for our communities.
Thank you so much, Billy, for that very simple solution to increasing climate resilience in your community. Just to have courage to resist the broken system. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? But of course, it takes a lot of courage. Knowledge, commitment, persistence are just some of those ingredients that we need to make change happen. And each of us can contribute in different ways. We just have to find that courage. So I hope Billy's words inspired you to find your own. Her message to COP leaders is short and clear. Don't forget those in the front line, and involve young people, women, indigenous communities in the important discussions. And it will make a huge difference since those decisions that are being made impact them directly, and they need to be part of those conversations. We join in her call for climate leaders to realize how much their support is needed and how much their decisions can impact those who are on the front line. So thank you once again, Billy, for this strong message. Now we're going to present you the first of our second place winners. So there was a tie, so there are two second place winners. The first is Water Producer Project in the Pipiripao watershed. I apologize to George for my pronunciation. Building resilience in a water conflict area of Brazil. This comes to us from the Regulatory Agency for Water, Energy, and Basic Sanitation of the Federal District of Brasilia, and ADASA for short, in Brazil. So we're now going to hear from George Werneck, who is the director of the agency. Over to you, George.
Hi, I'm George Werneck, and I'm representing the Water Producer Project from Brazil. The Water Producer Project is very interesting because it connects 17 institutions that used to work alone in a water conflict basin, but now with the project we create a very interesting governance framework to implement best management practices and recovery of the vegetation. To improve water resilience or climate resilience in the Pipiripao Basin, we are dealing with green and gray infrastructure, with good governance, with good data and information. It's very relevant for us to work and to create an environment of trust with the people inside the basin. And for sure, the cooperation among 17 institutions make it happen and creates a synergy in our actions. Before that project that started 10 years ago, we used to work alone, each institution trying to solve the problem. We have a water conflict there of about 20 years with problems in that basin. Very difficult situations, but today we can deal with that. You need to take care of people, and people will take care of the world and of the water. And it's important to cooperate. It's important to share knowledge, to share information, data, money. Mainly for the poorest people and people that are more vulnerable, that needs finance and support and infrastructure and good governance, good laws, and all the system prepared to face the floods and droughts. I can say the worst drought and the worst flood didn't happen yet, so we need to be prepared.
Thank you so much, George, for reminding us. It was an example of integrated water resources management par excellence. So you can imagine how difficult it is to get one or two organizations together to work together. Here we're connecting 17 institutions that used to work separately within a water basin that was prone to conflict. And so to turn that around and to work together is really a huge accomplishment. It's no surprise that it took 10 years to get to this point. Improving water governance is a long-term goal, so it's not something that happens overnight. And only those who actually persevere down this pathway are going to be rewarded to see the fruits of that effort. The importance of good data and information is key, and this resonates clearly in Georgia's message to COP26 leaders. It's vital to cooperate and share knowledge, information, and data, and we can't underestimate the power of cooperation and joint forces. It takes just little steps towards others or a little compromise for the greater good. So George makes another strong point. Let's not forget the poor and the vulnerable and support them in building their systems so that they're able to become climate resilient communities. So now we're going to shift towards our other second place winner, Rosana Landa, who is a coordinator for projects and strategic alliances of Fondo Mexicano para la Conservación de la Naturaleza in Mexico. I am so sorry for my pronunciation. Her message comes from the project Watersheds and Cities, social participation to improve the health of ecosystems and water provision. Please, the floor is yours, Rosana.
Rosana Landa Pereira, Watersheds and Cities, Mexico. Watersheds and Cities is a call to action to ensure a future in which Mexico towns and cities have enough water in the face of climate change and increasing population. We are changing the perception of water problem in Mexican cities and have already managed to improve public policies, create financial models to restore and protect forests, and engage local groups in defending their water sources to fulfill their right to water and healthy environment.
First, a strong leadership. Then we need to have the climate information available. This is the climate risk and the potential impacts must be identified by the community. Then integrate this information into territorial planning. If possible, make the latest technologies and credible data available to these communities. I also think that it takes inclusion and equity. We have to prioritize engagement with the urban poor or the rural communities, those that are more marginalized, ensure a strong community ownership and buy-in of adaptation intervention or resilient outcomes. And I also think that we need available and affordable funding to adopt low emissions and climate resilient development programs at every scale. And lastly, we have to improve the local capacity. We have to assess their capacity and then try to improve it with this knowledge, information, and try to coordinate collaboration between different stakeholders like universities and researchers, and also a lot of other sectors, the civil society, for example. Of course, support the implementation, and in this, prioritize ecosystem-based adaptation measures. And also we need the right policies in place. To take very seriously climate change, because it's the greatest problem facing humanity today, and that they must ensure policies that highlight the importance of ensuring fresh water for all, and to do this with social justice and equity.
So thank you so much, Rosana. This is really at the heart of what we're talking today about, resilience, how to increase climate resilience within a community. And Rosana gave us the list. You need strong leadership. You need to have reliable information available and integrated into planning processes. You need to have access to the latest technologies. And you need to prioritize engagement with marginalized communities to ensure a strong community ownership. And obviously there is funding issues and policy issues. So all of this comes together to build the capacity in a community to ensure sustainability and longevity for these particular initiatives. While this is not exhaustive, it's just long enough to reconfirm that change doesn't happen overnight. It's hard, messy, and every single aspect and step of that change-making process is important and can't be skipped over. And you need to also be sure to integrate all the actors that are affected by those changes. We might not have all the ingredients at the beginning of a change-maker journey, but it's vital to team up with like-minded actors and to share our knowledge and resources with them, because only together are we able to achieve more. We're now going to turn to our third place winner. It is Water ChangeMaker, funding the conservation of water factories in the tropical Andes, which will be presented by Maria Teresa Vargas Rios, Executive Director of Fundación Natura Bolivia. Here it is.
Hola, mi nombre es María Teresa Vargas, les hablo desde Bolivia y quiero hablarles hoy de mi proyecto Water ChangeMaker, financiando la conservación de las fábricas de agua en los Andes tropicales. Water ChangeMaker es un producto financiero que trata de integrar la conservación de las fuentes de agua con el acceso al agua. Lo que hace Water ChangeMaker es integrar ambos productos, es decir, el financiamiento para las obras grises con el financiamiento de las obras verdes, de tal manera que tengamos un producto integral en este caso y se pueda conservar las fuentes de agua, como también se pueda asegurar el acceso al agua de esta familia en sus viviendas.
My name is Maria Teresa Vargas and I'm speaking to you from Bolivia. And my initiative is Water ChangeMaker is a funding mechanism to protect the tropical Andes. What it takes to the community to better cope with climate change and how to get resilient? One is to protect each water source that they have on the ground. But second is diversify what they are producing right now. And third is creating local strong institutions so they can actually work all together how to cope with climate change. And finally, I think it's really important to bring the last technology to this community and understand also the technology that they have been developing, and we can learn a lot from them too. But having this new technology joined with the technology that they have, they will help a lot also to mitigate climate change at the local level. Science are speaking really loud now. We know the effect of climate change and we know how that will hit to the poor countries and the local communities. So please follow the science. Second, I will say, please use and do stuff together, like joint mitigation and adaptation to climate change. Why is that? Because if we want to protect the carbon that is in the forest, also it's people living there, and we need to help these people to be adapted to climate change. And second, I will say, invest in organizations who are able to show the best result and not the best log firm. I think it's many organizations at the local level in many countries who are doing an amazing job. We should look for those organizations to help us to get into the point that we really are protecting the forest, we are really protecting the climate.
Great. Thank you, Maria Teresa. This was an excellent example of a successful initiative about mitigating climate change at the local level in a systemic way. The Water ChangeMaker managed to create the much-needed funding opportunities for indigenous communities to carry out conservation programs, helping the rural world to adapt to and mitigate climate change. At the same time, it empowered women and helped to ensure adequate food and good health for local populations. And finally, it served to build trust between institutions and populations. We certainly hope that the voices of those who know the whole process well, from idea to implementation, will reach the climate leaders. Maria Teresa's message to them is clear. Listen to and follow science. Invest in organizations who have proved themselves with the best results. Look for those organizations who are doing an amazing job at the local level and support them so that they can extend their influence even more. Those were the first, second, and third place winners of the Water ChangeMaker Awards, which were selected through a complex two-stage jury process. But that's not all. Like I mentioned before, we have 2 more winners that emerged from People's Choice Awards in partnership with the Climate Adaptation Summit. The first People's Choice Award was conducted with the 12 finalists, and the second one is the Climate Resilience for Africa People's Choice Award. So we are first going to hear from the People's Choice Award, the General People's Choice Award. We will hear from Ashish Barua, a program manager of Helvetas Swiss Intercooperation in Bangladesh, and Zobair Hassan, director of DORP. Both Ashish and Zobair will present the initiative of Mothers Parliaments Advocate for Climate Resilient Wash Facilities. Over to you.
আমার নাম মোসাম্মদ সুপিয়া খাতুন, মা সংসদ স্পিকার, ডর পানি জীবন প্রকল্প বাগেরহাট জেলা মোরলগঞ্জ উপজেলায় কাজ করছি। আমি একজন বাংলাদেশী। জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের কারণে লবণাক্ততা বেড়ে যায়, যার কারণে দরিদ্র হতদরিদ্র পরিবার মূলত তাদের কথা ভাবে না কেউ। আমরা সেই সমস্ত পরিবার নিয়ে পানি স্যানিটেশনের ব্যবস্থার কাজ করতে পেরেছি, যেমন 4টি পিএসএফ, 87টি পানির ট্যাঙ্ক এবং স্কুলে টয়লেট সংস্কার।
Mothers Parliament is currently working in the southwest coast in the country. So the resilience in that community, you know that the community actually living in the climate vulnerable area, they are struggling with the context, in the challenge. So actually they adapt themselves in the context. So they know how to adapt and how to make them resilient. So because of their experiences on the ground, they have that indigenous knowledges and experiences, whatever they need. If they get equipped with the technical advancement and the financial support, they will be more resilient in future, I guess.
Thank you very much. My name is Zobair Hassan. I working for DORP. It's a national CSO, and our initiative is Mothers Parliament. And this is a ground women platform, grassroots women platform, and they are very much strong enough to mobilize and express their needs in relation to the climate resilient issues, particularly focusing on the need of the women water and sanitation facility, particularly water supply. And now around 20 to 15 parliament members in the grassroots level, they are mobilizing the whole community and informing the community about the need of water, particularly drinking water, and the Southwest Bangladesh are facing the salinity in their ground aquifer. That's why surface water is the main source of their water, and that's why Mothers Parliament are advocating to re-excavate and also preparing and creating the pond, which is storage of water for drinking purposes. And the local government structures that we call the Department of Public Health Engineering is responsible for rural water supply in the whole country. So, and the Mothers Parliament bring attention to these stakeholders or the service providers, namely DPHE, and influence them to re-excavate the pond so that they can have the potable water.
So So from Bangladesh, one thing I will ask from the policymakers that for the climate vulnerable community in Bangladesh, in the coastal areas, you have lots of commitment. So please be accountable to your commitment. Please do what you have committed for the climate vulnerable communities. That's all.
On the occasion of this COP26, that's put sufficient allocation for pond re-excavation, and in line with present situation and also the commitment, and don't waste our time for allocating enough or sufficient allocation in time, because a lot of women are now getting support or getting water by this allocation and through the pond re-excavation. Thank you very much.
Great, very sobering messages that we're getting from Bangladesh, where they are literally living every day with the impacts of climate change. Another success story about the power of a community as well. And this ChangeMaker story documented the extreme vulnerability in the deltas of Bangladesh and what women are doing to advocate for the communities and to improve decision making. Mothers Parliament not only managed to mobilize the whole community, but had a strong enough voice to express their needs and reach decision makers who are responsible for water supply in their area. It's no wonder that this Water ChangeMaker story received a total of nearly 16,000 votes in the People's Choice Award. And that represents a huge validation by literally thousands of people who support these activities and want to see them continue and be replicated and succeed all over the planet. The call of Ashish Barua to all the decision makers at COP26: be accountable to your commitment to climate vulnerable communities. We hope that events like this one will bring the voices of the local heroes and change makers one step closer to those who need to deliver on their promises and commitments. And last but not least, it's my pleasure to present you our final winner. This specific award was born from the desire to illustrate the specific challenges of climate change adaptation in sub-Saharan Africa. The Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs and GWP teamed up and developed the Climate Resilience for Africa People's Choice Award. The initiative that won is Strengthening Climate Resilience in the Kafu Sub-Basin from Zambia, presented by the project manager Indy Danala. Unfortunately, we couldn't reach Indy for a message here for COP26, but we believe that their ChangeMaker journey will bring inspiration and maybe even possible replication in other countries. So we do have a video that we produced previously that we would like to share. Please roll.
My name is Indy Dinala, Project Manager for Strengthening Climate Resilience in the Kafue Sub-Basin, implemented under the Ministry of National Development Planning of the Government of the Republic of Zambia. The project is piloted in the southern part of the country in 3 provinces, cutting across 11 districts. The initiative aims at improving livelihood of the rural farmers by providing alternative sources of income away from the business as usual kind of monocropping agriculture. In this case, water points are provided for the farmers using solar-powered boreholes, and they are able to engage into horticulture production and be able to also rear small ruminants and village chicken, and even engage in fish farming. This initiative is the definite way to go for Africa and beyond, and lessons drawn from this initiative can be replicated in other African countries, because pilot program for climate resilience is piloted not only in Zambia but other African countries. Thank you.
Great. So I hope that you have enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about our Water ChangeMakers. And I hope that they have also inspired you and their messages have resonated with you. We launched these awards to make visible the teams and organizations who shape water decisions that build climate resilience at the local level. We collected their journeys because at times like this, learning from and celebrating those who have made things happen is more important now than ever. So for more inspiration, I would encourage you to visit the Water ChangeMakers website and browse through the 78 different ChangeMaker stories that we have profiled there. It's really a wealth of information and inspiration that can hopefully serve to all of you to take those examples back and implement them in your own context. We are going to see a little bit of a video introduction to our platform. So, and then we will wrap it up after that. If anyone has any questions afterwards, we're happy to take a few questions from the floor. So over to the pre-recorded video. Let us take you on a short journey to see the diversity of ChangeMaker stories we have received. Listed here are the semi-finalists, 78 change journeys selected among 350 submissions, searchable by language, country, and region. You can see the wide range of stories from nature-based solutions to financial investments, from small community initiatives to large global programs, promoting different types of change. The change journeys explore the role of leadership, integrity, and participation. Many of them focus on innovation and offer great examples of new creative thinking and leadership. Before the COP, we reached out to the community of changemakers and we asked them what important messages they wanted to convey to leaders at the COP. Let me show you just a few of those, and at the same time invite our audience to join the call by submitting your own messages to COP. We heard important messages around rainwater management from Gujarat, decarbonizing water from the US, water efficiency in agriculture from Chile, youth and climate education through play from the Netherlands. I'd just like to highlight a few particular messages, one coming from Burundi, a commitment that says, I must ensure and contribute to the creation of a society which protects water ecosystems, the natural environment, and which maintains harmony between ecosystems and human activities. We received a message from South Asia saying that climate financing needs to get down to the local level so that local communities and governments have funds to finance their own climate adaptation interventions. And finally, from the Netherlands, a message that says, every action counts, no matter how small. Here's the link to the platform on Padlet, and we would invite you to join us and bring your messages to the COP as well. We hope that today's session managed to showcase the bravery, commitment, and leadership of those who drive change on the ground. We also hope that you found inspiration in all those Water ChangeMaker stories, and they will serve as encouragement to those of you who still need that little boost to transform your dreams and ideas into action. Thank you for joining us. We have about 3 minutes left, so if there's anyone in the audience that would like to come up and share their Water ChangeMaker idea or experience, please feel free, and then we'll just wrap it up. Is there anyone who wants to tell about an experience they have on the ground that has increased climate resilience through different activities or... Yes, please. Please.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Yes, actually, our perspective is a little bit different. I work for an animal welfare organization, and we focus on communities that depend on their animals when it comes to working in agriculture. For instance, access to water. Access to water is a big thing, and they use animals like donkeys, horses, and mules, for example. And for the community, so animal-dependent community, these animals are assets when it comes to, well, from the point of view, like economical point of view, but also social point of view, anything. So what we're doing is we are collaborating with several partners and funding projects that include provisions for the health and the welfare of these animals, because if families and communities lose these assets, then they lose almost everything. So, for example, when it comes to water, I'm sure that you know that there are women and girls especially, they spend up to 200 million hours per day collecting waters, and the simple fact of having an animal then reduce the timing to access that precious source, and that allows them to dedicate themselves to something else, so education, for example, not only to the usual family stuff. So this is our example. Really happy to collaborate with like-minded parties, and that's why we're here. That's why we're engaging. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And like I said, if you have something to add to the ChangeMaker journeys or platforms, let us know and we'll help you. Anyone else have some experience that they want to share that has made change happen on the ground? Anything?
Hi, this is Mukhlis Rahman from Bangladesh. In a coastal area where salinity is a huge problem, and people can only grow monsoon rice, because during monsoon rains, the salinity goes down. So compared to other areas of Bangladesh, they get only one rice or one crop a year, but in other places, people get 3 crops. So there is huge food insecurity, huge migration, and also there are lots of being located in a coastal area. They suffer from various, hazards, impacts of hazards are there. So what we did, we salvaged a canal. I mean, we should say restored a canal from leaseholders through government officials' involvement, and excavated a canal so that it retains rainwater. And that actually, made the differences. Mm-hmm. Now people can grow 3 crops a year, and they diversified the crops. They get vegetables, oil seeds, pulse, rice, wheat, even sunflower. So it ensured that food security and also jobs for the poor. Mm-hmm. So we think that it's a huge thing, a small investment in small interventions, but big change. Mm-hmm. So we are now documenting this. This was funded by the Climate Justice Resilience Fund, and we are working in a coastal area. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you for sharing those experiences. It's incredible. And what we see from it is that water is not in isolation. You have to take a systems approach to be able to solve multiple problems all together at the same time. Just to wrap up, I want to thank you all for joining us here today, and also all of our viewers that joined us on YouTube. And we want to encourage you all to become water change makers. As you can see, a lot of work went into this, and I just wanted to say a special thanks to the Water ChangeMaker team and our partners for making this happen. Thank you so much. Have a great day.